So that's a way acceptance can continue to give.
That's the victory.
Yeah,
the victory
it's
lap.
just like it's terrible what happened, but here's the good that came in spite of that.
Yeah, so just kind of touching on some terrible things. I mean, we're in the heart of Germany here, and wasn't that long ago you and I were here for stakeholders, and we went to Dachau.
Yeah.
I love the country of Germany, but there's definitely some dark past. What sticks out to you from that trip to Dachau? Like, what's one of your big memories?
Oh man, it's just that what we're capable of, and I can't help but think that we should be very wise and aware that we shouldn't be so foolish as to think something like that couldn't happen again under the right circumstances. We should always be aware and on guard from how we can become so uncivil towards people that we feel like are the problem. But just the Holocaust itself.
I was in Nuremberg, and it's so beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. I would totally go back and stay. Cool. 2 miles outside of town is the Nazi parade grounds. And you just, wow, those two things juxtaposed. To think about all the horrific things that happened.
As Americans, we hear one side of the story. It's been interesting working with, because I have the location here in Germany. So occasionally that American-German history, World War II, comes up. And in particular, one of my business partners, he's getting ready to retire, 65 or 66 years old. And the first time we really started talking about family, I asked him, I was like, hey, tell me a little bit about your dad, whatever. And he just referenced the war. He was like, my father was in the war. And I was like World War II? And he was like, yeah. And I mean, I guess it's pretty ignorant to not be like, oh, well, your dad was a Nazi. But I didn't also want to assume, because from my end, if we're in America and you call somebody a Nazi, that's pretty disrespectful, right?
Yeah.
So I was trying to not use that word, and I said something. He was like, well, yeah. I mean, it was like so common sense to him that his father was a Nazi, because he even said, he was like, if you were born between this year and this year, that's what you were. And he did this. He was like, did his finger like a gun and was like, if you said no, that's what you got. So you either go or you get the gun. And so it's pretty humbling to, hear him say that, and for it to have been made so normative for them to do that, and then to see the atrocities that were there. And then he and I have went into further conversations, like after I went to Dachau, I was like, hey, do you think the German people knew? And he's like 100% all in. Yeah, they for sure knew. And even our guide that was there, she alluded to that, that they may not have known the depths. Now, the thing that stood out to me the most when we were there is I didn't know, and I consider myself to be a fan of World War II history. I didn't realize that there were working camps and then death camps. I had never delineated that, but I thought our guide did a very articulate job and respectful job of saying, hey, at one point, the Jews were just put on trains straight to the death camps. At one point, they were part of the working camps, but then that switched. And that was pretty that's pretty hard to take in that. Yeah. At that point, there is a definite difference in the Jewish community and then everybody else that they made come in and just be a worker in the working camps. And so one of the things I think is challenging, like Marcus, who is he's going to be on the pod with us sometime later this season. He and I have talked about it, and it's not an easy subject for Germans to talk about. No. Marcus is he's my age, so I think you could say he's a couple generations removed from who would have served, maybe 3, but probably more like 2. And it just kind of brings up the subject of, how do we grieve the major events that happen in the world that even sometimes we do have control over. Like sometimes we'll make decisions that are we'd like to get back, and we have to do that. But then we've all had a loved one that has passed, or we've had something happen in our life where we deal with grief. So just wanted to take some time today and talk about grief in general. What are the 5 stages of grief, and how, as humans, if we're going to grade ourselves about how we're doing with that in society today, what's that look like, and where do we move on from that? So
Not well at all.
yeah,
is the answer.
I mean, that's yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Right.
Not well at all. You mean in this German situation?
No,
Or-
just in society,
Oh,
in
I
modern
see.
time.
Yeah,
we
just
don't,
as
we don't
a-
grieve well.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just so you started that, so
Yeah.
unpack that just
5
a little bit.
stages of grief you were talking about, right?
Yeah, that's a kind of a common paradigm around it. But I think defining grief is helpful, and I would say right away it's good. It's not good to lose something, but it's good to grieve something you've lost. You likely didn't have any control over losing it, or you'd have fought and fixed it and kept from losing it. But
Yeah.
once it's lost, our bodies and our brains go into a process that we call grief, and it's really important to let that play out and guide it and get involved in it. And so the 5 stages are denial. These are not perfectly linear. They're kind of a spectrum, but you will hit that stage at least once in the process, but you might go back,
Yeah.
from what's
So can we pause on the denial? So is the denial like, not that it didn't happen, but it's not affecting me type thing?
likely it's some type of shock to it, but it can go on for a while, even past the immediate moment.
Like, is
where
it
you're
is
just-
it even real?
Yeah, is this happening?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
usually our brains and our bodies have a hard time entering into what just took place, the loss of it.
And also understanding, being able to take in the breadth of what's happened. So, I mean, you could say the death of a loved one that was like your father, or somebody who was a huge mentor in your life. Or we've even, in prep, we were talking about COVID. So my therapist has said numerous times, we haven't ever grieved COVID of the depth and breadth and everything that happened. So it impacted everybody in society. Kids missed school. You had college students who were ready to graduate. They missed their senior year. And I mean, you can look at everybody's situation and downplay it and be like, well, that's not that big of a deal, or this isn't that big of a deal. But when you're a child and you've missed out on that aspect of life, I've now met kids that were like, yeah, no, I was a COVID graduate. I mean,
Yeah.
that's actually how it's got to that point to where they identify with that.
My son had a drive-through graduation. Like,
Yeah.
he didn't get to celebrate it with
No
his
proms,
friends. Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
And I'll say the phrase, it's no big deal, could be actually a stage of denial
Yeah,
and
exactly.
grief. And some people sit there for a long time denying what's happened or the magnitude of it to allow themselves to feel the weight
Yeah.
of what had been lost.
So does everybody go through the denial stage? Because denial could be that, like, well, it's no big deal, right?
Yeah, it could be a little different
But it
for
can
each
also
person.
be, like what you're saying is that it could also be, you really haven't taken in the full impact of what just
Yes.
happened. You just went through it and you passed on through.
And I've met people who sit at like stage 1, and I want to stress again, it's not as linear as you think, but there is a sequential aspect. Let's just name it really quick: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Now that has a fluidity to it. It can move around, but hopefully in the grief process you can move to acceptance, and that's a place where grief is starting to get closure.
So the one that isn't as apparent just by its name is bargaining.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I don't understand that.
we'll get to it. We'll chat.
Well, let's
Let's
go
go
back.
back to
Yeah, let's
denial.
go back to denial. Because even if, like, one of the things we talked about in prep, you had a relationship situation, Paul, that you made the choice to end.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big part of when you end a relationship is, especially if you're on the end of, I didn't want that relationship to end, you could set in denial that this isn't really even ending,
Yeah.
and just push that off and pray about it, meditate about it, hope, and be like, something's going to happen that's going to
Restore
change
it.
this. That's going to restore it. And that's on the side of the person who didn't choose. So that could be, a marriage, even just teenagers who fall in love, and or one goes to college or something like that. The one that's left at home could be like, they're going to come back, they're going to
Yeah.
graduate, and then that doesn't happen. But in yours, yours was a very complex situation that you were leaving, and you made the choice.
Yeah.
But
But then if the horse dies, you got to dismount. You know what I mean? Like you can't just stay and think that something's not happening.
correct, yeah.
It's a good point. That's why some losses are easier to grieve than others. Some losses are really nebulous, and without some help, a community or someone who's helps us guide our way through it, we could easily get stuck in a process we don't realize how much we're grieving.
Number 2 is anger, right?
Yes.
So in that with that situation that happened, you might have moved. You might almost skipped over denial. Mm-hmm. Like
Yeah,
your
straight to
your denial
Finger pointing.
Yeah,
Yes.
your denial might
Yeah.
have been even in the time frame of when it was happening before you made the decision. Like you might have been trying to deny yourself that this thing was broken.
Yeah.
Before you you might not have been like, no, this horse ain't dying. I'm
Right.
gonna keep riding him to the finish
Absolutely,
line.
yeah.
Yeah. So that could be also part of the beginning stages of the denial.
Mm-hmm.
And then you moved right. I'm not saying you did. I said you did, but I didn't mean to say that.
But I did.
You okay? You could move.
Some
I
losses,
did, yeah.
some
Yeah, you
losses
could
require
Yeah,
that.
you
like,
could skip right into, like you said, finger pointing and like, mad at this person, mad at God, mad about the whole situation, just trying to figure out what the
Yeah.
went wrong.
Anger could be the first thing we resonate with, especially in cases of loss where someone has caused the loss to us. They've harmed us. And anger, it's really important, again, for us to realize is a secondary emotion that activates when we feel a loss of control. That emotion is always about control.
Isn't it
It's
interesting?
wanting to regain it in some way. And it's not always harmful, but we want to mature in such a way that when we feel it, we try to do something that's positive instead of negative.
It's interesting because it brought me to the thought of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Yeah.
I mean, born probably out of that very thing, right?
Sure.
We're angry. We're angry at anybody that would put
Yeah.
people in this position, and a whole organization is born, and it's named MAD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm mad.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes what we resonate with doesn't, you may not feel denial first. A lot of times denial by its very nature is hard to realize that's where you are. But anger is usually a spot where we know we're in the process. Like we're really pissed about what's happened.
Yeah, I've been around some people who I know lost loved ones that they really looked up to and cared for, and you could tell that as good as they seemed, that they had not even admitted that the person's not there anymore.
Right.
Because they're, maybe their body's going into a self-protection mode to it's like, I just can't, for whatever reason, I can't process that right now. But one of the things that we want to unpack is these stages have been proven, and you can't just overpower them.
No.
And so as we work,
freeze your life.
as you work through them, what'll happen is the stuff starts to come out sideways.
Yes.
So when it's there and you're unwilling to accept it, that's when the anger can come out. You all of a sudden you start to be some person that you haven't been before. Like people never knew you as like really angry, and all of a sudden you're angry at, even the wait staff at a restaurant, and you're just losing it because you haven't been willing to just be like, I'm really upset that this person died, even if you're upset with God. I mean, we do talk about theology a little bit, and that's where I think in that stage, one of the things that I've tried to do is get to where I do a prayer of like mourning. Mm-hmm. There's a phrase, a title for that. We've talked.
Lament.
Yeah, lament, a prayer of lament, where it's like I'm not. I might be screaming in my prayer, but I'm not trying to disrespectfully scream at God. What I'm trying to say is, I know you can read my heart and my mind, but I got to get this out. And we got to have this conversation. And I know that He's the answer to it, but that's got to, because if not, it'll come out sideways somewhere else.
I
Oh,
think
it's
you see
coming out
prayers
somewhere.
in the Bible like that.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I think
Well, there's a
absolutely.
good majority or a good portion of the Bible's filled with lament.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one thing that's worth stating is that from a pro-human standpoint is that we feel these things and they are for us. So what I feel is for me. It's not to project it onto you or to somehow not deal with it and then it come out sideways towards you. It's telling me about what's going on inside of me. And so the worst thing that happen with denial or anger is what we move past and we don't give voice to the feeling. You got to find a way to express that for yourself to move through the process. So it's got to find a voice. And you can sit 15, 20, 30 years. That emotion is as fresh as the day that it got stored. It just needs to be voiced. And there's ways with journaling or talking or prayer. There's a lot of ways to express it, but it needs to find its way out to heal.
This would be anecdotal, not clinical, or, there's no science behind what I'm about to say, but just my observation is that people that tend to be unhealthy in lots of areas of their life and relationships, when they have a catastrophic event that sends them into a place of grieving, they don't grieve very well.
No, we
They
don't.
hang on to it sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us, I guess, have erred on this, but I've seen it a lot where it's like they relive this event long past what seems, healthy. It's like they've got this bent that's all they can think about.
Yeah.
And I know there's depending on the depth of the catastrophe, there can be a longer period of time when you're going through this process, and it can be who knows how long. But I've seen it be it just feels kind of unhealthy. And I don't know, that's just an observation. I don't know.
Well, I think just to touch on that a little bit, maybe some of these steps also are easier for certain types of people. So like some people, like for me, I'm naturally an angry guy. So I feel like I process that because I don't have a problem getting it out. Like whether I'm taking out on weightlifting, a punching bag, or just
The dog.
a lament or the dog, but where I can get hung up, and we're not there yet, but like a weakness for me is depression and melancholy. So I can get in that phase, and dude, I can get stuck, like just get hung up right there, and almost find myself in this vicious cycle of
Going back to the anger.
of rumination. Like it's just like, and I cannot get, and that's, so for me, of the 5, that's a sticking point for me. So I'm saying, I hear what you're saying,
Yeah,
but
I
I
get
think
it.
there's dimensionally people who deal well with the emotional side of relationships. On the outside, it can seem like they're dealing with that better, but that depression and the acceptance thing is on a little bit further out. And I think that's where it can get sticky for some people.
And I guess it's like you said, ruminating, revisiting the story again, retelling it in your head, going back through the points while you're angry, all of it, just ruminating.
Yeah.
Well, from a human thriving, human flourishing standpoint, everything is about the stories that we finally come to and tell ourselves. So it's
With regard to the catastrophe?
everything. Like
Okay.
all of us are sitting here with stories that are the operating system of our life. And so grief would be another place where you could patch in a story that resolves or you tell about what was lost. And that's the goal in good grieving, is coming to a place where you authentically, not forcing, you allow yourself to feel, but you begin to tell a story about that loss that's life-giving to you and the people around you. Now, it doesn't mean you're glossing over it, because if the loss is significant enough, we will never be the same. So I don't want this to sound like this is patty cake, gloss over your feelings. It's horrible, but at some point, can you tell a story through the tragedy that allows your life to have more meaning and more purpose? That would be.
Yeah, because for me, in the ruminating side of things is where we start to try to rewrite history.
Yeah.
And undo it.
Yeah.
And
that's moving into bargaining.
Yeah,
too.
that's that bargaining deal, and you're bargaining with yourself.
Like you're going to retell the story and change up the facts? Or?
Yeah.
What you had power over.
Yeah.
And if you had done this, and could you have done that? And maybe if I hadn't gone there that day to have that drink with that friend, I wouldn't have been on the highway when this happened. And, a lot of things, we're trying to find a place to control that event, and you can get stuck there.
Yeah, because you're armchair quarterbacking all of the history and the elements that went into, like we were saying, you made that decision. I've made decisions. The other side of grief is when death comes, we have zero control over that. But you could still be like, hey, well, maybe maybe if I'd cooked better, maybe if I cooked healthier meals
Right.
for my spouse, they wouldn't have,
If I hadn't worked
contracted
so much,
this
if
or
I hadn't gained a few pounds. I mean, you could just it's
yeah.
endless.
Yeah.
Oh, like the loss I'm talking about affected my kids. You
Yeah.
know, still does,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Decades later.
Right.
So, and you never know, like, when that's you said decades later, so you get 10, 15 years down the road, and then you identify that, oh man, that impacted them because of this decision. And you said you made the decision. So then it's like, okay, well, what if?
That's the bargaining.
Could I have stuck it out? Could I have done this? Could I have done that? And you always know that there's a chance that the answer is yes. But the problem is you don't know the depth of everything else that would have been in that decade. And so you're trying to rewrite it and tell yourself that maybe you could have done better. And that's all. There's always a chance that that's going to be yes. And for me, that's where that bargaining comes in, and I guess now that we're talking about it, when you talk about the pendulum, that's probably where I can tend to swing is from the depression to the bargaining, and back and forth, back and forth.
So the depression would be kind of a byproduct of telling yourself, I could have done this different. This could have turned out differently.
One way of looking at it is depression is actually the state of you finally experiencing fully the loss. And that can kind of fluctuate, but you're sitting in. So the way I like to look at everything in the brain is joy related. So depression, in our brain has a hardwire for this despair. It's when we hit a low joy state. And joy is always connected to the loss of presence in some way. So when you finally begin to feel the weight of the loss, and that's usually what we're avoiding by denial, anger, and bargaining, is we don't want to get into the feeling of really how it feels to experience what we've lost. But as we get there, and then we have the potential to trigger back and forth, because when you feel it, then you're like, okay, I want to bargain, or I want to get mad, or no, it's not there. It's not there. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
But the more we can sit there in the feelings authentically, the more we can begin to bear what has happened.
Do you think if it's a decision that was in our control versus a decision out of our control, that can have a bigger impact on the bargaining part?
I think so,
That
yeah.
would make sense.
Because if it's out of your control, there's a little bit of acceptance that you can say, I didn't really have anything to do with it. I mean, but when it was in your control, now it's like, now you're playing the blame game with yourself.
Different personalities respond different as the way they perceive their control and the potential for control. I've met some people before where they have such a high sense of control, they just believe that if they had been given a chance, they could have avoided that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you can
Wow.
get stuck there. And it's like, it's okay to just sit and realize that you had no power in that situation. And that's hard for some personalities to sit in.
My mother, died in a car wreck, and the accident happened at 2 p.m, and just through odd circumstances, couldn't find anybody next of kin, and so I didn't hear about it until like 10 o'clock at night. I mean, we were laying down, ready to go to sleep. I get a call. It's the hospital. They won't tell you what is exactly wrong because she was still on, machinery. And so, get down here right away. I call my siblings. I'm like, I don't know what's up, but it's something bad. I didn't realize what she was, when I got there, she didn't even look like herself. I mean, it was horrific. And then basically pull the plug at like 1 o'clock in the morning and she passes. That's the same week that my son was getting married in another state. So we had to go through all of that funeral stuff and just race through it and all the prep and then race down there, go through the wedding for Preston.
Yep.
And
That's right, because he was getting married in Florida.
yeah, at your place.
Yeah.
And so we get back from all of that. That was in September. Roll the tape forward to December 7th. I'm driving down the highway on my birthday. And all of a sudden I think, my mom would call me on my birthday. And it's kind of like the annoying mom call,
Yeah,
okay,
right.
I'm not a kid,
Yeah.
but you're 40-some years old and your mom's going to call you and wish you a happy birthday and take you back to 7 years old or whatever.
Right.
Roll your eyes,
Yeah.
But I thought about, she's not going to call me today.
That's heavy.
Dude, I'm driving down the highway and I lost it. I'm like, I literally had to pull over on the side of the highway. And it was weird because I realized, like at the funeral, everywhere, all through this process, I had never really it just never landed on me.
Yeah.
Not like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the event.
Yeah, that could be what we would call that stage of depression. For that moment, it's where the feeling finally comes through.
Yeah. Also, it could be the actual acceptance of it. There could be some things in there.
Yeah, she's never going to call, right?
Because I don't know how I'm interested to hear this, but I feel like there are aspects of the event, whatever we're grieving, that we actually get to acceptance of, but then we can cycle back, especially when it's
like a
very
pendulum that swings back and forth.
Yeah, to where it's like that's the full like accepting this is real.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you know, it's my birthday, and my mom's been calling me for 150 years.
Wait.
Yeah.
Back to that.
Since the 1700s.
Yeah, yeah. Since the Pony Express was writing letters,
Right.
and it's not anymore. You know.
Yeah.
And then you're in that stage where the acceptance is now. Man, I would do anything for that phone call. I've got a really good friend of mine. We're the same age, grew up. We were in diapers together, went to the same church together, and he lost his mom tragically. She was just in her 50s, and I felt like he handled it like really, really well, carried it well. And then Mother's Day came around, and like he sent us all a big, huge message, and was like, "Hey guys, you know, make sure you do right by your moms today because, you know, I don't have mine anymore." And that, you know, that kind of thing is where it's like you're having to accept that this is the way it is for the rest of life.
You guys have phone numbers of people in your life that you still have a voicemail from them or a phone number, and you like can't erase that out of my phone.
Well, right here, and I feel like I've come to accept it. But in my favorites, my second favorite is my dad. He passed in. I mean, I'm getting emotional now. He passed in June of 2019. But I can't delete that.
Can't take
but
that
it's not
out.
a lack of. I don't feel for me. It's a lack of acceptance. It's a memorial. It's an honoring.
Yeah, exactly.
I want his face in my favorites until I die. you know?
Right. Yeah. So in that, I mean, you're getting emotional now. You're saying that's not your non-acceptance of it.
No, it's the sadness that I wish I could go have a beer with my dad.
Yeah.
I wish I could call him.
Yeah.
Because I realize now in his loss how much those times meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's not you not accepting it.
No.
The acceptance has like moved you into that next stage that's not written.
Yep.
It's the victory stage.
Absolutely.
Of, you could say victory or appreciation or where that's at.
Right.
And I think in a relationship, like our relationships with our parents are always complex. So I think there can also be dimensions of that relationship where once they're gone, that are still not complex, but complicated, where you actually go back into something that you have to work through a little bit.
And these tears right now come from a place of having worked through the story. There was a lot of pain in that relationship. There's a lot of brokenness in that relationship, but these tears are for what was good that I cherish.
And then when you're an adult, you also probably see your parents from a lens that's entirely different than when you were dealing with that stuff.
I was a complete idiot as a teenager, you know.
Well, I mean, which one of us were not? I mean,
but I realized.
Sorry, Paul.
Yeah.
No. Except that one time.
Well, it was in the 1500s when it was a different.
He was busy feeding the chickens.
Medieval times, you know.
Yeah. So we kind of got to that. So the first one is, my Lord, we got emotional on that. And I just went blank. So
denial.
The first one is denial. Then we move into bargaining or anger? Anger, then bargaining, right? So so now the next one is the depression phase.
Yeah.
So I think for a lot of people there, that's a sticky one because we think about depression as a clinical situation typically. So
it's very normal for every human to have.
I've had a friend go through a situation pretty recently and it kind of went from, well, I could be depressed. So there's some denial in there of that, hey, I'm dealing with some depression, about this scenario. And as men, I think sometimes
It's hard to say.
we
Yeah.
kind of want to be Wolf of Wall Street, and not be like, hey, wait a minute, this is not feeling too good.
Yeah.
And so then the depression for a lot of men that I know turns into reclusiveness.
Well, that's running back to denial.
Yeah.
Not just denying what happened, but denying how you feel about it. And the longer that we prevent ourselves from really feeling the weight and the pain of it, the longer we actually draw out that grieving process. And that can lead to more triggers in situations that are not even related, but they remind you of the loss. We're not being our best selves when we're not allowing grief to take its course. And having some guided understanding in that helps a lot too. But sometimes we just have to be able to sit with friends or alone, and I recommend both.
Yeah.
Isn't it
The
possi-
weight of what we've lost.
I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's possible to grieve an expectation of what you thought like life was going to be, and then
That's some of the
when,
biggest grieving we do.
Yeah,
is
I mean,
grieving
I think that's the
expectation.
midlife stuff, right?
Yeah.
You come to this point where you're like, well, does that even matter? And if it doesn't, why have I been racing after that?
Yeah.
All these kind of things. Or this is what I thought, where I thought I'd be by now. This
Yeah.
is the things I thought that we would accomplish. This is where I want to go. And all of it then just kind of implodes, and you go, well, what's left?
Yeah, what's left? That book I was telling you about, Lisa Turkhurst, The Good Boundaries and Goodbyes. She went through a divorce. Her husband was an addict. It's a great book, whether you're going through that kind of situation or not. But that's what she talks about. They lived in the same house. They were married for 35 years. They lived in the same house for those 35 years. And she just talked about, she started with just the front door. She's like, every time I walk through that threshold, she thinks about
a
not
reminder.
only what was, but they had children together. It was what was going to be. And now it's like that's not going to happen. And in that chapter, when she's talking about it, she talks about, I think it's titled, maybe, I don't know if it's 1,000,000 or 1,000, but I think it's 1,000,000 little funerals. So you're not necessarily entering all the way back through the grief process, but it's what you said. It's that, man, I thought this. I mean, think about a parent who dies young, or a spouse who is taken, or even, God forbid, worse, a child.
Yeah.
You think about all of those things about what you feel like was robbed and pulled from you. But if you're dealing with that, even if you don't read the entire book, just that one chapter on how to have those 1,000,000 little funerals, because you can think, okay, I'm here at the acceptance level, and then something pops back that.
Yeah, naturally, when we think about grieving, we think about death. There's death of relationships, death of covenant between people, lots of things to grieve, and I think I've grieved a lot with different relationships. But I think that existential grieving was deeper. I think that I really had about like 3 years of just, I didn't realize what to call it, but I
Yeah.
was just right here all the time.
Yes.
When I lost my view of what it meant to matter in life, right? Like, what was I chasing after? I had my ladder leaned against the wrong kinds of things, like that. It was pretty.
This is huge for me.
It was huge.
And we don't talk enough about it. I feel like coming maybe into acceptance to some degree, and I fully expect any swings that come along with that. But yeah, at 51, a whole shift from what I've done for 30 years,
Yeah.
and I'm able to carry the wisdom into what I'm doing now. But yeah, that was
And
catastrophic.
And we don't have to get like too into the what everything was and what this was called and what that was called, but we had a very similar time frame for all of us. Like when we started to get to know each other, the organization we were a part of, the moves and the shakes, and then the feeling of abandonment. Like once you're like, hey, I'm going in a different direction, and if
You're dead to me.
yeah. I mean, I didn't ever have anybody specifically say that, but that's how it felt.
And they practice it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even in a time of social media where somebody could make some kind of snarky post or whatever about, I can't believe this or I can't believe that. And if it's tied to kind of, hey, this is my belief system, and that's tied to your purpose in life, you can go through a wilderness where you're like, what now?
Exactly.
Well, we as creatures, and we don't, this isn't the subject, but it's worth noting, is that our identity is not contained in isolation or individuality. A lot of our identity is tied to our key relationships, how the brain informs itself. Who I am is who I'm deeply connected with.
So the loss of those kinds of things,
is a loss of identity.
yeah, it kills you.
It is. And in that, I just want to throw this in here too. When we've made bonded attachments, like deep attachments, the most painful pain a human can experience is attachment pain. So with the loss of a relationship that you are bonded with, when that changes, it is the worst pain a human will feel.
And that, just to clarify, because in my therapy, I had an attachment wound that I had no idea was there. I mean, because I was in a session one day and my therapist got to digging around a little bit, and I was like, this is interesting, where we're going with this. And this went all the way back to my childhood. And at the time, I'm like 44 years old. So I think where we're not just talking about death, it's that attachment, to those relationships. And I'm not sure that it's not more painful that person's still alive, because now you're having to see them and you're having to experience that. And if that wound is never, if it's only buried, then it's just a festering deal. It's got to be opened, cleaned. And I think they can come back together and heal,
It's possible.
but it's not going to be without some pain.
Well, you were sharing that you kind of have to have, for your recovery and for the end of the process, you have to have a story. That's correct, right? It can't be a glossing over. You have to have a story.
Yeah, so in that fifth stage of acceptance, some practitioners, proffer and offer this sixth step, which we could call story or testimony, or it's not that you make the evil good or somehow the loss is great, but that you find such a peace in your acceptance with what has happened that you begin to see how it has made good possible, or how your life has oriented it in some way. Now, there's some losses, and whoever may be listening, we're not trying to make your tragedy a good thing. It's
Right,
not.
correct.
I know
Yeah.
we have to say that.
Right.
It's horrible, it's awful, and it's unthinkable, and there's no explanation. But for humans to thrive, we have to find a peace somehow in some way where there's purpose. And you see it a lot of times with gun violence. There'll be so-and-so's tribute or so-and-so's initiative, and we're just trying to make a purposeful, meaningful good come out of nonsensical tragedy.
Yeah.
And that's a part, I'm just saying, that's the story we're telling from something that we had no control in.
I mean,
when we
your
lost
parents
it.
aren't going to live forever, right?
Right,
So
right.
they're going to pass. I mean, that's the course of life, right? Everybody loses a parent. And so you grieve it, and you have your story, the good that came out of your parents' life. That, to me, it's easier to go through all of those cycles with something like that than it is the attachment and detachment of significant relationships where you've really poured in your heart and love, and then, man, it's gone. That's tough. And the existential stuff where you've attached your meaning to a way of life, and then that's dismantled.
And
Yeah, those are
there's
tough.
death of I'm hearing echoes in what you're saying, and then also in my own story that I think it's worth throwing out, and especially for men. It's not limited to men, but like there's going to come moments in our life where we experience a death of reputation, and you do so much to try and protect that, and you just don't have the ability to control what people decide to believe about you, and it's still not true. They don't have all the information. They don't know. And I feel like over the last 3 years, the transition in my life has had some of that, and it's like I don't have the ability to tell everybody why or what's going on. I just
You
have to
remember us
allow them
sitting
to
in the
believe.
car, and I said,
yeah,
you don't have to give that to me.
that's right.
You
I
remember that?
appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it meant a lot.
Because
Meant a lot.
it was that need, to justify
Yes,
ourselves, right?
yes.
It's like, I was like, man, I love you. You don't need to tell me that,
It means the world.
Yeah.
And that's why we need each other to grieve well. It's not something that's 100% in isolation. You need a voice that says, hey, you don't have to tell me that.
So in that part, if it's like you're saying,
Sure.
There was a decision that was made. All three of us made a very similar decision, and we believed it to be right. Other people believed it to be wrong. We're still trying to improve who at the time, and hopefully now we're still trying to improve who we are as humans.
Amen.
But we don't have any control. I mean, even some of if certain people were to listen to certain episodes of our pod, they'd be like, "Oh my God, those guys have went so far this direction."
Sure.
It's unbelievable. So, what stage is that in, to where you've still got somebody that you have a little bit of respect for, and something gets said that you're just like, "Man, I can't believe you didn't even ask me, where I'm at on that. That you just put me in that category." When that happens, I feel like you're almost starting back at stage one.
Yeah, and I'm not sure anyone would agree with this, but the first thing that pops into my head is they're almost micro griefs in and of themselves. Like a large thing you've lost is going to be comprised of the loss.
Yeah.
But it's comprised of thousands of little losses. And I do think that each of those in their own way, not that they need as much time, but you'll find a fragment of your loss, like something you've dealt with. I use this in forgiveness, and I think it applies to grief. It comes off in layers, and you might.
Like an onion.
Right, big onion, the Vidalia. You guys ever heard of the Vidalia onions?
Mm-hmm.
They're massive. And I used to work at Sonic Drive-In.
Oh, so you know that.
making big onion rings. But that thing comes off. That's a real thing. And I think sometimes the layer is an effective working through it. But don't fail to expect that maybe you walk through that again in some ways as the layers begin to come off.
I don't know if it's good advice or how I talk to myself or what, but when I have a situation, and I think it applies to the grief piece too, like when people are still around, causing you grief.
Mm-hmm. Like you guys in my life.
Right. I think that forgiveness is, I didn't see where you were going there.
Walked right into it.
Yeah. I think, I try to, I don't know, fake it till you make it. I don't know how to say this, but it's like you kind of have to act with civility. To me, forgiveness is a decision, and also the story I tell myself is also a decision. Like if I'm just going to languish in depression and I'm going to languish in negotiating and I'm just going to keep, I have to make a choice at some point to sort of like act out. So to me, forgiveness is a decision. It's not a feeling. Maybe later you get the feeling.
Sure.
But so grief, it may have a play on grief is what I'm saying, that, just like you have to deal with people that there's something else going on there than what they're giving me, right? And so I'm just going to be civil. I'm going to act out forgiveness. I'm not going to talk about them. I'm not going to trash them. I'm not going to, get retribution. I'm going to act out forgiveness because it's a decision.
Absolutely.
Okay. And the feeling may follow, usually does. Does grief maybe have some of that too? What do you think?
We both were like,
You go.
You go first.
I would just say, Jocko, I think, does a really good job as a former Navy SEAL, talking a lot about like death and war.
Yeah,
and
Jocko
conflict. Jocko Willink.
Yeah.
Incredible leader. But he talks about a protocol that he would teach or talk to his guys. And so I just like that word. So just loosely bringing it in is the 5 stages of grief is like a protocol. And so the only thing I would caution is that as we move into what needs to be, that we at least keep our thermometer or our radar on to any feeling that still, if it's a micro thing that wants to work its way out, or there's still some work to be done there. But I do agree with a protocol allows us to move through a process and then get back to functioning but not with denial. You know, we've got to
Yeah.
make sure we keep our eyes open so it's not another form of denial shutting down any needs that could still wanting to be worked through.
I'm gonna ask you a question, then I'm gonna answer my own question about how I deal with it, and then you can give me your side of it. But you and I had a conversation not too long ago about contempt, and that contempt is kind of indicating there's not forgiveness. Is that a fair statement?
Could be.
Could be.
Yeah.
So for me, the forgiveness piece, I don't know if this is prescriptive or not, but forgiveness sits in the bargaining, because bargaining is after anger. Because when I'm pissed, I'm not even thinking about forgiveness.
Yeah.
I'm trusting that I'm going to get there, but when I'm in that phase, I just need to let me be angry and not do anything too stupid, right? So, but when I get in the forgiveness phase, because I've heard some people be like, well, it still kind of bothers me, or it concerns me, or not upsets me in an angry way, but it still brings me hurt. And I feel like maybe I haven't forgiven this person. I'm like, I at times I've been like, I don't know that I agree with that, because you can't forget it. If that anger level is getting to the point where you're contempt, like I want to hurt this person, or it's just so angry to the resentful side of things. For me, that's my barometer of I'm dealing with anger because I haven't truly forgiven them.
That's good.
What for me in that bargaining side, I've got to get to where I can, and this is just me, I'm not putting this on anybody else, but I can go in my prayer and be like, this is surrendered. Like this is fully surrendered to you, and I can lay that out and be in my feelings with it and not be angry. So if somebody's stolen from me at work, or which has happened numerous times, or I mean, I can't get into the legal details of it, but I've had more legal stuff happen in the last 4 weeks. I told somebody the other day, I've talked to so many attorneys, I feel like I've lived a whole season of suits for my life.
Got a closet full of suits.
Oh my God.
Ties to
That's
go
a
with
TV.
it.
That's a TV show. You might not be hip on.
Sorry,
but,
okay.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It's something you should check out if you haven't watched it. But
Or not.
or not.
Or not.
But so that's kind of my barometer, is where can I set in that, and I'm not saying that the pendulum never does swing back to an unhealthy dose of anger, but from the forgiveness piece, that's where I'm at. I just want to hear, because we've had that contempt conversation before. I just want to hear how that hits you. And
I think it's spot on. I think it's really good. And contempt, for one, is definitely a sign that something's still going on there. So I'm going to go to Jesus because he is the master teacher on forgiveness, as far as I'm concerned. And he taught so much about it in being the way in which we repair, and we also return to joy for ourselves. And forgiveness and loss and grief, they really tie in closely, because it's a part of a healthy grieving process. Is if forgiveness is needed, you definitely need to move into that as well. So I heard the best, most simple, almost kindergarten example of forgiveness, and it's changed my life. It's someone, let's do it like this. Someone does wrong to you or hurts you, and there is a debt created of what that person owes you because of what they did to you. Forgiveness is not saying what they did is right. It's not ignoring what they did. It's not turning or denial. That's really important, because some way forgiveness is taught is like it's a form of denial. No, we're not denying anything. What you did was wrong. But this is so heavy and it's so weighty that I can't carry it. And so for Christ being in your life, you get to say, Jesus, I don't know what to do with this. Would you take it? That's what forgiveness is. It's not making what you did okay. It's not saying you didn't leave a big mark on me. It's the debt of it. And the moral obligation you have to me now, I will not hold that.
yeah,
Now, that doesn't mean I trust you. Doesn't mean we just become buds. It just means I'm putting the weight of that on one who has the ability to carry it.
well, so if somebody is not a Jesus follower, which is how we identify,
Sure.
another way to put language on that is that the weight of what's been done needs to be surrendered.
Yeah, you
So
need to
it's-
go put that somewhere that's not on you.
Yeah, I think we even said it in another pod. It's like being so weighty about it that I'm gonna drink the poison hoping it kills you.
Yep.
When all it's really gonna do is kill me.
Just kill me.
Yeah. So somehow surrendering that so you don't hold on to that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I have issues because when it comes to contempt, because I have an eye roll for certain people.
Sure.
You know, I have a suspicion. I have a judgment. You know, and maybe it's because I've seen the story play out so long that it's hard for me to not feel some of those feelings. You know what I mean? So what they did to me is history, but I wouldn't come, you know, within a 10-foot pole of a relationship because I think I'd be re-upping for the same stuff.
Well, that's trust. So forgiveness does not preclude or include trust. It means I won't personally be responsible for the debt that you owe me because of your actions. I'm going to set that aside and release the debt you owe me. That does not imply that the relationship's restored, what they did's right. It's that we have to surrender it because of the harm it will do to us if we sit in it.
As opposed to collecting on the debt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which then is the more you hold the debt,
That's the anger part.
the more you feel a responsibility to bargain, to be angry, possibly a little bit of denial, and trying to manage what needs to happen and what you believe's owed to you based on the harm done to you.
Yeah. I think, too, you need to be careful about that because if you get I was bit. I've been bit by a dog twice in my life, and they were both German Shepherds. So you know what? I don't like German Shepherds.
Yeah,
I'm a little prejudiced against them.
Understandable.
Now that doesn't mean that we are in Germany. That doesn't mean the next German Shepherd I see on the street is going to bite me. But what it does mean is I'm not getting close to him.
Right. And that's trust. I just want to make sure that's connecting that to trust. That's
but I have a whole herd of dogs. I guess a pack of dogs, right? And I don't have any fear issues with my dogs.
Yep.
But I still have an emotional tag back to that. And you could say it's emotional tag, it's experience, it's wisdom, put them all in one. Some of your things that I think you have eye rolls about that you're talking about is not only tied to what was hurt, but also your experience. That's like, I think you still would put yourself in a situation like that again, but you're going to flesh it out a little bit. You wouldn't just dive into it. And so
give
that's
your whole
wisdom.
heart, right?
Yeah.
That's wisdom.
Yeah,
we can learn from the hurt.
Yeah.
The thing is the weight of the debt owed to me still a part of the decision-making process, or did I set that down and now I'm just walking in wisdom about how I'm going to handle things from here on out? And
So we started with grief and we kind of end up on forgiveness.
It's hard to miss it, though. Yeah,
it's that whole existential and relational piece that grieving causes, right? It's like not just, when you usually think of grief, it's like somebody died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But there's so many things in our life that die.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you said it's the part that's still alive that got detached from us that hurts really the most because we still see it.
Right.
And we have to figure out where we're at on that.
Yeah, if I struggle with grief and going through the process, it hasn't been with a people thing. Mm-hmm. The death of a person, to me, I see people grieve the death of a person, and it seems unnatural how they play it out for so long. They never let it go, And to me, that feels like you're not healthy. The existential one seems a lot more complex, and sometimes there's living parts of it that are still damaging you. So to me, it's more difficult, but that's just my perspective.
Yeah.
But it's not just your perspective. That's tied to your belief system because you have hope.
Yeah.
So we're hoping against hope that
we'll see our loved ones
that
again.
there's even if we don't, that there's something better for them on the other side. Mm-hmm. If you are nihilistic, or let's say
but I've seen believers do this too.
They will, but I'm just saying,
unnaturally.
If you're an extinction nihilist type person, you're going to have a harder time dealing with the actual death of someone.
Yeah.
Because
this is all you have.
Because this is all you got. This is all of your hope is captured in this. And that's why their argument back is it's like, well, you just believe in a fairy tale. Okay. whatever. But I'm from a grief perspective, I'm not dealing with it like you're dealing with it. So call it a fairy tale or whatever, but you're living in misery because you're believing in extinction and very nihilistic.
It's interesting, the studies, though, faith and belief, how much it helps us. And again, obviously, I'm not in the fairy tale. That's a bit of a crass statement to make, but like to have hope in any dark situation helps us as humans. And so we should be careful not to trust cynicism so much that
Correct.
we wouldn't let a spark of hope just be there.
And I'm
We
only
don't have to know
I'm only
beyond.
saying that tends to be the nihilistic argument coming
Agreed.
back. Yeah.
And I kind of just, if someone's out there, because it's when you're grieving, and I believe people are going to be listening to us talk who are grieving, boy, nihilism and cynicism is right there. I mean, saying, come on over here. But I would want to encourage our friends today to dare to hope in the midst of despair and loss and inexplicable sorrow, that there's still a spark.
Yeah, nihilism and cynicism is a monster that will
is.
eat your soul for sure.
Yes. Can feel comforting in that moment because anger makes us feel powerful again and in control. But that long-term side effect of hopelessness is not something any of us want to live in
Yeah,
or live with.
yeah. Well, it's been a great episode of Being Misfits. And I think for today's society, like where we're at, being able to approach grief like this openly, whether it is for ourselves or people that we love and that are close to us, almost seems misfitty. Because it's so counterculture these days, to really help somebody through, to be understanding of where that's at, even if they're on the opposite side of where you are, to kind of just let all the walls down, and try to help somebody through that. So I feel like, this is something we as a society, as humans, we need to really strive to try to get right.
When we talk about misfits, think of probably the people that have done the most good, societal good, have been people that came from backgrounds that they grieved. The hurt, the damage, the loss, the abuse, right? And they come back from that with another story. There's hope. Let's go someplace else. Well,
Yeah, and then how encouraging and life-changing is that? I mean, the guy who gets mentioned the most on the pod is Jesus.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of change that went out from that actual, suffering that
Totally.
came through all that.
Totally. Check on your friends.
Yeah.
Just check in with them, and just ask if they've lost something or gone through something. Don't underestimate how important it is to just say, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. Is there anything you'd like to talk about?
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
Yeah, pick up the phone, call,
Yeah.
text. I mean,
Check in.
communication has never been easier. I mean,
Yes.
Paul's picking up his phone. He's a phone picker-upper. If you put I bet if we go on his phone and they've got the number of how many times you picked it up, I bet his is in the hundreds a day. Pick up. But pick it up. Call somebody, text somebody. I mean, it's amazing what that can do. I mean, we've all been going through something, and you just get that little nudge. It's like, hey, man, I'm thinking about you. You're like, wow. Like, okay.
I'm not alone.
Yeah, makes a big
alone.
difference. Well, as we wrap, I just want to say you two guys have done that for me at various times in my life, and I appreciate you all. I love you guys, and want to encourage everybody who's listening, just reach out, be there for people, and be there with them when they're grieving. It's going to be all right.
Man,
All right. Love you, boys.
love you back.
Indeed.